Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Yesterday, I had on this platform a discussion where, in my opinion, I said that a national transition authority that Dr. Ibu Mandaza and a number of other Zimbabweans are proposing could not possibly happen this side of 2028 elections. For the simple reason that the ZANU-PF regime that is there in power today would not want to give up power. Tendai Biti, in his presentation, argued that one of the things that would be required if an NTA was to take place this side of the 2028 elections is that there will have to be a referendum to agree on changing the constitution, just as much as there's to be a referendum if ZANU-PF was to push ahead with their proposal to amend the constitution to allow Mnangagwa to stay to 2030, postpone the 2028 elections. I think ZANU-PF would much rather have a referendum to allow ZANU-PF or Mnangagwa to stay until 2030. The MPs themselves would welcome that because they too will not have to face an election. And so a referendum to allow Mnangagwa and the MPs, senators, etc., to stay in power until 2030 has got a better chance than a referendum to remove those individuals from office to allow the creation of the NTA. So many people have responded on the issue, asking the question is, okay, what is a realistic format of the NTA? In this particular case, looking at if there's going to be an NTA, it has got to be past the 2028 elections. Ben, welcome to the program. I don't know whether you have had a chance to look into that aspect as well, or you agree with it.
Good day to you and good day to our viewers. Thank you for joining us. So I think, days prior to this, broadcast by Tendai Biti, Professor Ibu Mandaza, we had done a piece on it. And, I was saying that, realistically speaking, the only time you can form a national, transition authority is once ZANU-PF's mandate in office, or once they are done with their, with government, with being government, is the most realistic opportunity to bring up this subject. Currently, because we participated in the 2023 elections and ZANU-PF won those elections, whether the elections were rigged or not, ZANU-PF won those elections. So it becomes impossible for us now to go and ask them to let go of power, to relinquish power totally, and have different people run the National Transition Authority whilst they are, on the side. I mean, we won't be realistic if we're going to say that is what is going to happen, So for me, I still maintain my position to say, before 2028, it is impossible to have this. It can only be possible after.
Okay, so I think on that point we agree. What would be the mechanism to have this NTA? In my opinion, if the people of Zimbabwe are smart enough to realize that they have been the ones who have been making the mistake of participating in flawed elections to give ZANU-PF legitimacy, I think that appreciation, acceptance of that political reality is absolutely at the heart of the possibility of an NTA emerging. Because there's no doubt about it. The 2023 elections were flawed. They were rigged. SADC and the AU, who did send their election observers, among others, condemned the elections as flawed and illegal. But they could not go the extra step of denying ZANU-PF political legitimacy because the people participated in those flawed elections. There cannot be any denying that when you participate, you give the process legitimacy. I think we've gone through this over and over again, but unfortunately, many Zimbabweans still fail to appreciate that point. So in this case here, if the 2028 elections come, the idea is people should not participate in those flawed elections. There is no chance that ZANU-PF between now and 2028 will have implemented any meaningful democratic reforms. That is obvious. ZANU-PF is actually banking on the opposition participating in these flawed elections as usual. It will be really surprised if the opposition did not participate. Stopping the opposition participating, I think, is unrealistic. Because we know from past experiences that the opposition have been participating in these flawed elections as long as they feel they have the chance of winning the few gravitran seats that ZANU-PF is giving away. So the only hope is for the people themselves to realize that there is nothing for them to accomplish in participating in these flawed elections. That penny has not dropped. In 2023, Chamisa was able to con 2 million of his followers to participate in flawed elections on the basis of an idiotic lie that he had plugged all the vote-rigging loopholes. We need to reach that 2 million Chamisa Chete brigade to convince them that this is a lie. Unfortunately, that is proving to be very hard because most of these people, they really cannot think for themselves. They do what they are told. This is why it has been so easy for the opposition to con them again and again to participate in these flawed elections. In 2018, Chamisa told his followers that he has got stringent measures to stop ZANU-PF rigging the elections. Of course, he lied. But if we were to get to the point where a significant number of the 2 million do not participate in 2028 elections, I believe SADC and the AU will have the confidence to deny ZANU-PF political legitimacy. This has happened before in 2008. This will then clear the deck for the formation of the National Transition Authority, which will be equivalent to what they did in 2008 when they formed the Government of National Unity. Ben.
I totally agree with you on that. This is what I have been also saying, to say, we need to create an environment such that, or that looks identical to, the 2028 scenario. And the scenario can only be created once, a great majority of people refuse to participate in rigged elections, citing what SADC recommended for us. SADC gave us recommendations. The AU did the same. The EU did the same. Fix this such that your elections are free, fair, and credible. That is what we are going to use to push ZANU-PF. If they do not do that, then come election day, there will be no elections. I'm not saying let us go and be violent. No. I am saying that on election day, we will either make ourselves known that we are not participating in rigged elections. There are observer missions that will be there. And if they see more than 2 million people that have been denied their right to a meaningful say in the governance of their country, that alone, I am sure that alone will deny ZANU-PF legitimacy and push now and open now the gates so that now we can talk about the National Transition Authority. Besides that, right now, like I said, and I will repeat myself, ZANU-PF has got the mandate to rule because of the 2023 elections, which we participated in, knowing fully well that they were going to rig them. And so we have to swallow that bitter pill now and, plan and forge ahead that come 2028, we have a good plan in place of whatever scenario comes, our way. We have the ammunition to deal with it.
I'll just play a short clip of the discussion that took place on this very issue, and then we'll comment on it and close the program. This is another aspect of that Tendai Biti brought up in his presentation.
And why do we need a seat on the Security Council? We are too small a country. Zimbabweans just want to be given the opportunity to work. That's our biggest asset, the dignity of labor, which we define in the preamble of our constitution. That's what Zimbabweans are interested in. They don't want to be rich. They want to work. If they are rich, so be it. They want to go to school. They want to go to functional hospitals. They want to enjoy recreation, to go and see dynamos being thumped, even by a mafia team like Scotland. That's all they want, the dignity and decency of work. So the legal issues are not the problem. The legal issues are not the problem. But a lot of work has to be invested in them. It is the political issues and the political equality that is the problem, because you have certain people that have got big egos who will say, if I'm not in it, no one can be in it. And good ideas are then squashed to the ground because we are too selfish to subordinate personal interest to the broad national interest. And unless we do that, as Edson Zobo used to say, ZANU-PF ichatonga kusvika madhonga ane nyanga. They will rule in perpetuity because ZANU-PF is harvested from our lack of agency, our lack of urgency, our lack of unity, and our lack of cerebral and visceral application.
How do I attend to those legal issues, legal and constitutional issues? For example, how do we institute the referendum in the first place?
It's very easy. We already have a Referendums Act. So it means that the executive must be on the table. We already have we've had the referendums in this country with the referendum on the 10th and 11th of February 2000. So the process of a referendum is not a problem. It is what you are putting to the people. That's where you need careful work. It must be simple. Don't put a complicated thing to a referendum. People, it must be simple, a yes or no. So you need to craft something that is sellable. So we didn't put the constitution to the referendum in 2013. We put a simple yes or no. We didn't put clause 84, clause 48, clause 238. We put a broad idea. That is what should be put to the referendum. In other words, the broad principle should be this. Do you accept that for now, to use Obed Masaro's word, there is need for a timeout? We need the rest. So let's going to re-elect these men and women to run us for the next few years, but whose function is to do X, Y, Z. And if they are done with that, they go to Dotito, they go to Chendambuya. Then political parties come on board, we choose them or we don't choose them, and Zimbabwe goes forward.
Well, I'll just stop it there and reiterate what I said before. What NIBT here was talking about is having this referendum now, if there's going to be an NTA before the 2028 elections. Like I said, in this particular case, the ZANU-PF and the MPs who are there will have to accept giving up power, which is most unlikely. So the idea here is to have the elections declared null and void, or rather SADC to say the process was not free, fair, and credible, and therefore then denies ZANU-PF political legitimacy. When that happened in 2008, there was no need for a referendum. Everyone accepted that the electoral process had failed to produce a legitimate government. And everyone accepted that SADC was stepping in to help resolve the country, to move it forward. And the need for a transitional government was the only rational thing. If you have failed to produce a legitimate government, we will not need a referendum. If people do not participate in 2028, and SADC and the AU were to turn around and say the electoral process that you carried out did not produce a legitimate government, then ZANU-PF will have no choice but to accept the need for an interim arrangement. And this is where the NTA would come in. There are many other aspects here that we can discuss and consider, such as who should be in the NTA. One obvious omission from that NTA is ZANU-PF and MDC-CCC politicians. If the people are rational enough and firm enough, they can reason with SADC or whoever it is, an outsider. And I think we do need an outsider to help make this happen. But the emphasis will be ZANU-PF leaders, MDC leaders, were in the 2008 to 2013 GNU. They failed to implement even one token reform. It is therefore naive to say they should be involved in the NTA or the GNU or whatever is formed at the end of the day. If they fail to implement even one token reform in the last GNU, it is naive to expect that they will do so now. That is the argument. And I think the people of Zimbabwe have got to be firm on that point. ZANU-PF has held the nation to ransom for the last 45 years. And MDC, they've played their part the last 25 years. They've connived with ZANU-PF by failing to implement even one token reform during the GNU itself, and by participating in flawed elections, knowing fully well that the process was flawed. So that point must be made. And the nation must stand firm and say, no, we want a GNU that will this time implement the democratic reforms and put the nation back on a democratic footing. But that has got to be made by becoming very emphatic on that point. If you have a chance to listen to Tendai Biti's presentation, this whole video, you will realize that one of the things that he emphasized on or is proposing is that no players, stakeholders should be excluded. In other words, ZANU-PF, MDC, CCC politicians should be given an equal chance to be in the National Transition Authority and influence how it's formed and so forth. I think that will be a big mistake. You include ZANU-PF and CCC politicians in that National Transition Authority, and that is the guarantee that nothing of substance will be achieved. Because if they failed to achieve anything during the last GNU, I think it is naive to expect that they will do so now. Ben, do you want to give your closing remarks?
So in closing, from where I stand, I will still repeat and say our best bet or our best shot at this National Transition Authority is once ZANU-PF's mandate is up, which is 2028, and we refuse to participate in rigged elections, whether it be elections or even a referendum, anything to do with ZAC running it, be sure to know that ZANU-PF will have a hand in it. So on that, we should refuse. Whether they want to, push for a referendum, let us not participate in it, because nothing has changed. ZANU-PF will rig that referendum as well. So what I'm saying is, once there is no reforms, there shouldn't be any form of election or referendum. That way, we will push SADC to intervene like what they did in 2028. And hopefully, we then choose competent individuals to see us across the line, to see us across the finish line. And I think this is the best way forward for Zimbabwe right now and the most realistic approach. Thank you.
Just on a point of correction there, I think ZANU-PF will go ahead with the elections. The opposition would participate. There's nothing that SADC or the AU can do to stop the election or referendum taking place. It has to be the ordinary people, the ordinary Zimbabweans themselves, who commit themselves to saying we are not going to participate in a flawed process. That is what the Zimbabweans themselves have got to do. And send a clear message to both SADC and the AU that they are not participating in these flawed elections because the process is flawed. In the past, that has proved mission impossible because the opposition, notably Nelson Chamisa, had no problem conning his followers to participate on the basis of idiotic lies like I've plugged all the vote-taking loopholes. So the challenge is to educate, particularly the Chamisa Chete Brigade, on the sheer futility of participating in flawed elections to give ZANU-PF legitimacy, give a few of the opposition leaders a seat on the gravy train, and according to Jealous Mawarire, Chamisa got US $20 million for his role in conning the people of Zimbabwe to participate in the 2023 elections. The bottom line is ZANU-PF has everything to gain from the rigged elections. The opposition leaders have got everything to gain from the rigged elections. The people themselves have absolutely nothing to gain from the rigged elections. It is the ordinary people who must force the regime to be denied political legitimacy. And they can only do so by not participating in their millions in these flawed elections. Thank you very much, Ben. And those of you who were able to join us this evening, thank you very much. Have a good day.